Welcome to Endgame Sensei, where I give a position to two unsuspecting, untrained IMs, and they battle their way through it in the search for chess progress. Today's Endgame Sensei is one of the cruelest I have ever done. This is a pawn endgame. I will talk a little bit about pawn endgames once they get started, but I just want to begin by saying pawn endgames are the cruelest because they are, in fact, the most concrete and involve more than any other kind of position, as far as I can tell, calculation. And you can go deeper in calculation with pawn endgames than you can any other kind of game. Now, in a tournament setting, which is what we're training today, you don't have forever. You don't have forever to do it, which is why I'm going to give them 5 minutes right here. And we're even going to do a little poll here. And the question is simply, who is better? Oh, I got to write in white to move. Who is better? And we're going to say, or let's just say who is winning. That's the interesting thing about pawn endgame. Somebody's winning. Who is winning? White.
You said white to move, Jesse?
White to move, yeah. Draw. And I'm gonna do a little text, and I'm gonna say we're gonna give you guys 5 minutes to think about it, and I'm gonna put a text down too on our little site here, on our stream, to let everybody know it is white to move. Yeah. We have done more, let's say, more positional endgame senseis in the past. And there's still principles involved with pawn endings. But like I said, calculation comes into play in a much bigger way in a position like this. Yeah, very evil position. And also with the positions that we've played out, I would say there was more than one way to play it usually. And there might be more than one way to play this for both sides. We'll see. This is, like all endgame senseis, is not a study. This is from an actual game. And so we'll see that both players did miraculous things in the actual game. I suspect these two IMs here, they're not going to get anywhere close to the actual game. Who knows what's actually going to happen? Right. So we're going to give this 5 minutes. We're going to do a poll. We're doing a poll here on the Twitch. Now, if you're on YouTube, you can just imagine what it is yourself. You could also just post in the comments who you feel is better here. Obviously, you want to take a little bit of time to think, as these two are now, about what you feel is going on in this position. I will say this one fills me with dread. This one fills me with dread because I know that the smallest detail can turn the position from what you thought was winning to completely losing and vice versa. Yeah. I'm just making fun of them. You know, I get on them, but it's got to be said. Both me and Kostya, we've been stinking up the dojo the last couple tournaments, man. It's been a real disgrace. Me and Kostya haven't been doing well, man. So, you know. Here we go.
Let me just say, I would never enter this position from either side.
So far, we got a couple minutes left to vote, and then I'm going to force it on them. Where actually they'll give us their sense too of who they feel is better and why, and then I'm going to force it upon them.
I mean, I'm just going to make a guess here on the poll, even though I haven't finished calculating.
You can see on there, I'm grabbing the fen.
I think I would need about 12 to 15 minutes of silence to solve this position, Jesse. So 5 minutes won't be enough.
That's fine. I don't know if you'd get it in 12 to 15 either, honestly, my friend.
I would bet on myself, too.
Actually, weren't you famous, David, for one time saying that you could work out any pawn endgame?
Any pawn ending if I get enough time.
Ooh, buddy, I wonder if this is the case of Maybe
It's like
David
it's like
might fold.
arithmetic, you know. It's like if somebody gives you like 2 10-digit numbers to multiply, like you know you can do it. It's just a matter of time.
I remember when you said that, and I was like, no, I don't think that's true. I like the sentiment. I like the sentiment in that, yes, many pawn endgames you can work out. This one, well, we'll see. Maybe. Maybe. We'll see. I do think it's, by the way, everybody, we're gonna start the clock pretty soon. It's gonna be a time control of 5 minutes plus 30 seconds. The players will have to move the first move. The first person playing white will have to move within the first minute. But anyways,
Black as well.
Black as well. And that's just an idiosyncrasy of the way chess.com works. But in any case, they will have been thinking about it now. And it's very much a tournament setting. And there will be, obviously, whether you're white or black, you're going to have to respond to whatever ideas your opponent throws at you. All right. So we're almost there. And the poll, we can say, very clear advantage for white. 75% people saying white is winning. Kostya, what is your sense?
So, if you hadn't told me that someone was winning, then actually I think I'd be feeling, if anything, the position was maybe drawish. Like if I had to guess, But since you said that like someone's winning.
No, I didn't say that. I said the 3 options were white is winning, it's equal, or it's a draw.
And in the poll, there's both equal and draw.
Yeah. No, I didn't say someone's winning. I just said it's.
okay.
I just said in a pawn endgame, it's not. I'm not going to say someone's better. I'm not going to say black is better. Black is either drawing, winning, or losing. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Then, yeah, if I had to guess, I would say it's drawn. But if I had to choose a side, then somehow I just lean towards white. Outside pass pawn. It's just like, how are you going to bet against the outside pass pawn?
Okay.
Yeah, you'd have to be a madman or madwoman.
All right, Mr. Pruess, what are your thoughts here?
Well, my instinct would be that white's winning, but so far my calculations, black has held a draw.
Okay.
So I'm of 2 minds. As always, I always have my sort of positional or evaluative mind, and then like my calculation mind. Sometimes they agree, which is awesome. Sometimes they don't, which is big struggles. But here my calculation so far has drawn for black. My instinct would be that white's the one trying to win, and they're close. I feel like white should sort of be winning, but there's some resources.
All right, let's start this party, my friends. And after we start it, they're going to turn off their mics, and then I'm just going to be narrating their fiasco. And we'll see. Stay on just for a second, though, guys, because last time we did this Endgame Sensei, there was an inexplicable technical failure. So let's just see if it works. Boom, it works. All right, you guys, I'll talk to you after it's done.
All right.
Okay, cool.
And I got to do a Jadoub here. Jadoub. All right. It's interesting about the way both the poll and David did their analysis, and Kostya, was that they weren't like, oh, dude, black's up some pawns. Black's up some pawns, man. And the benefit of the pawns is not just like maybe the queen. Obviously, they're kind of gross pawns, but they're also tempo moves, right? At some point in the pawn ending, you're going to need to blow a tempo to induce Zugzwang. One thing I wish I had said while I was talking with them was the game Connect 4 has a lot in common with pawn endings where you can foresee some kind of Zugzwang situation. So my understanding of this position is black is probably winning, but black has to be super ingenious. And of course, white can be ingenious as well. And of course, black could lose this thing. Not hard to imagine black losing this thing as well. In the game, white played c4. It's hard to imagine that that's not like the most principled move. You could start with king e4, and I think that would probably transpose to c4. Yeah. See if they change their mind too, about this. Let's say some obvious stuff. White is the one who seems like he can more quickly establish a passed pawn on the queen side. Black, however, if he somehow slows that pawn down, stops it, will obviously have chances to turn the tables on white. So that's the kind of general thing. Are they not moving? Oh my gosh, wait, I might have blown it. Have they moved? Oh, Pruess hasn't moved. Oh, they're moving, sorry, my bad. Sometimes I have to stay on this page in order for it to work. So we saw king f4, king f6, c4. And I think white's already substantially blown it. I think, because this will allow black to go to the queen side. Wait a sec, no, it's going to be, so the big question is, did white, by playing king f4, did white enable the Manhattan transfer of the king to the queen side with e5 and king e6? Whereas before, if you played e5, let's say with the king on e4, I shouldn't say before, but rather with the more natural king e4, if e5, black has to wonder about king d5. So, a very practical situation. I think black will, because Pruess will play e5 whether he likes it or not, because the threat of the outside passed pawn is too much. So he will do it. And we could imagine a variation like e5, king e4, king e6, c5, and then black, see, he had to do it, e5, will play moves like h4. And when white starts running the pawns, as long as the black keeps his pawn at e7, he can happily give up the e5 pawn if he can snaggle the one of white's pawns on the queen side. Easier said than done, but that would be a point. Now notice, a key thing about white's position is that I think we're going to see, by the way, is king e6 and c5. At some point, black will play king d7, king e5, king c6. At that point, you probably don't want your pawn on b4, because if it is on b4, I'm going to go snip and snap, and then there'll be a problem. The good news for black is he can lose e5, he can lose e7. So this king can go on a journey all over here, but if black picks up those pawns, you can forget about it. So let's get concrete here. King e6, threatening king d6. So let's imagine king e6, c5, and now maybe it would be good to throw in h4. So that it's closer to the other side of the board anyway. And so that if white plays b4, we can go king d7. It's going to get hot. And also, when we play h4, we have more moves to lose with h6 and h5. And I will tell you that this is the game position, except white has lost a move because he played king f4, e4 instead of king e4 directly. e6. Okay, I'm gonna guess no. I'm gonna guess no. But now it's very concrete, and the question is, what about king d5? What about king d5? So if we imagine king d5, king f5, and then if king c6, e4, king b6, e3, c5, where they're both queen, but white queens with check. And how do you evaluate that position? Hard to evaluate. Then if we imagine king d5, king f5, b4, e6, you still have to go king c6, so it doesn't really change the race. If, however, white plays b4, king e6, c5, the problem for white is very simple. That pawn on c6 will fall, and it looks bad. It looks bad indeed. The clock's Mr. Kraai. Oh, gosh, Mr. Kraai, buddy. What? Where did you learn to do this stuff, huh? Hey, buddy, where'd you learn to do this? Let's grab some clocks. Let's grab some clocks. I'm not very good at this, obviously. All right, buddy. Let's get a clock. There's one. Where did you learn to do this, buddy, huh? So hello, Kostya. Let's put his clock up there. And then let's get another clock. Where'd you learn to do this, buddy, huh? I'm like a 600. 600 when it comes to this kind of thing. And then Mr. Pruess. Oh, shoot. Zoop. 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 All right. Now, the other thing that I've done terribly, terribly wrong is I should say David is black. So actually, let's do that. Let's get our text going on here. We'll say David is black. I'll make this a little smaller here. There we go. Oh, good. All right, let's go back to this business. We got Kostya tanking correctly on this move. There needs to be some tank here. I think they're beginning to, well, b6. Now, the good news for white is he didn't lose that position. And so that's why b6 was maybe, how can we say, driven by the narrative that white was the one, or that black when he plays b6 is like, well, maybe I can just draw by playing b6, right? Rather than trying to really nail white. So there it is. Now, important to see, as I said before, that when this pawn queens, it will be check, right? So white on b4 has to recognize that e6 is going to move him out. Now, why is that kind of a big deal? Because if I played b4 and e4, then king d4, excuse me, would limit the advance of that pawn, because you can't do king f4, f3, because that square is taken, right? So you could advance it to e3, but you're not going further than that. But as I said, b4, e6 would be the move, and that move e6 would stop this from happening. c5. Interesting. Now I got to admit, I didn't think about that. Do I like it? to say no. I want to say no, but I don't know. All right. Is it obvious that the dude has to take? Oh my gosh, it's getting hot. It is getting hot. Like I said, Mr. Pruess has this fantasy that you could calculate everything out in a pawn endgame. I don't know, Mr. Pruess, man. I don't know. Maybe with a couple days, But a lot of ones I've seen, like this one, there's going to be you're going to have to figure some stuff out at the board, even if you did do a substantial think at the beginning. Well, now remember, they got 30 seconds to move. They got 30 seconds to move, so no one's going to lose on time. Now, what is the idea here? White's saying, hey, buddy, BC, king c5, and if now e4, I've got king d4, and I've limited this pawn advance. So now we get king e4. Okay, things are getting hot. So if we imagine this going with b4, king d3, white will queen, and then black will queen, but black will then be up 2 pawns. 2 pawns. And the black king is closer to the pawn on g2, which is just a nice thing to have, i.e. the white queen isn't doing so much. As long as black can convince himself that there's no fancy schmancy check to the miserable king stuff, then this should be fine for black. At the very least, better, perhaps winning. So very nice, Mr. Pruess. Maybe Mr. Pruess will change his mind. We had a question, why would you put your king in front of the pawn? b4 should just win. I do not think so. Let's calculate it out. b4, king d3, b5, e4, b6, e3, b7, e2, b8 queen, e1 queen. And black is up 2 pawns, and as I said, the black king is closer to the white pawn on g2, which means if you start checking me, I'm going to roll over there, and I would love to snip that pawn, and then I'll have 2 rollers coming down the board. So I think unless, like I said, unless white has some incredibly fancy checks there, I think that's winning. And at least I do not see the incredibly fancy checks off the top of my head. On queen d8, I have king c2 at the end, and on queen d7, I have king c3. On queen d8, you do not want to play king c3 because then queen a5 check, and that's a sad day for us. Chess Kid is rating us. That's what the kind of thing we like. Chess Kid, thank you for rating us. This is Endgame Sensei, where I torment 2 aspiring IMs to see if they can improve their endgame skills. Mr. Pruess has said that he can calculate any pawn endgame to the end. I don't know if this one might be doable. It's pretty tough though, man. Pretty tough. All right, so now we're going to get just a competitive situation where black, I'm going to say, is clearly better. Unless white has some fancy trick. I don't see it. And the black king is better placed because it wants to go hunt the g2 pawn if white starts checking us to death. So again, this was a position we foresaw a little while ago. On queen d8, I'm thinking king c2. Yeah, no problemo. Queen b3, queen c3 ends the game, I presume. You could also play king e2 if you needed to. Yeah, David wanted to practice queen endgame. And there's no other checks. So once you run out of checks, that poor g2 pawn is going to get hunted. And that's the one I think I'd really like to win. It would be great to start slamming the h pawn home as well as the e pawn to just kind of reduce to that endgame of an h and e runners. David's definitely winning this thing. Yeah. And as often happens in real games, you get a forced sequence of moves like the running of the pawns there. And with 30-second increments, we suddenly have a lot more time on the clock. And you know what? We got some great sayings. You know, check to the miserable king and pawns aren't people. To put that on our dojo thing, hey, yo, DM Hokey, merch, buddy. Pawns aren't people. Check to the miserable king. Let's get some merch going out there. Come on. Now, let's dream about draws for white. If I could win, say, both h5 and h7 and just have the e-pawn, that would be very difficult for black to win. I don't see a way to easily do that, but that's at least an idea. The other idea, of course, is some kind of perpetual check. Now, the advantage of queen d8, I think, is it forces king c2. Remember, do not play king c3. Whatever you do, don't play king c3. And the advantage of that is, as I was saying before, the black king would love to go talk to the pawn on g2. Now, we do need a good move, and I don't see it. Maybe, and you gotta always worry about black finding a way to trade the queens. In almost every position where we trade queens, it's going to be over. Imagine even if we lose the pawn on e7, as long as that black king goes snips g2 all the way over. Queen e8. That's not convincing. So a default solution for Mr. Pruess here would be queen e5 check and then start walking the king over. A great rule of thumb in these positions, especially when you're in time pressure, is just centralize your queen, boss. Just put it in the middle. It'll do great things for you. And all you have to worry about is some nasty skewer. And whereas white has to worry about any kind of queen trade. Any kind of queen trade is the end, my friend. Yeah. That looks terrible. Yeah, and as has been noted in chat, queen e5 with the walk of the dog over to the f2 looks very powerful. Queen e5, simple and strong. Defending e7, h5, nasty. Some snips not merch, absolutely. We're going to get DM Hokey on there. Okay, so the time pressure move here would be king to d2. Right? Just to move, put it on a dark square because the queen's on a light square. King d2. You might have something more fancy. Mr. Pruess always likes looking for the more fancy. But king d2 seems the simple approach. It is indeed not only an approach to the position, but an approach to the g2 pawn, which we can use both to hide behind and to attack. What Mr. Pruess will, definitely be looking for is some way to force the exchange of queens. For example, we got the king to the 6th rank in any way and could play queen g6 check. That would be a beautiful way to end the game. Yeah. We got a question, is giving up the e7 pawn for the g pawn a draw after the pawns are off? Depends on the positions of the king. Obviously, in the pawn endgame, if the king gets a g2, it's over. And in a queen endgame with just a rook pawn, it's a draw technically, but on a practical level, I would call it clear advantage for the person with the pawn. With two pawns, that it gets more interesting. I assume that's got to be an advantage to have an extra pawn. What we're talking about is, imagine this goes off and this goes off. How do we feel about that ensuing queen endgame? And like I said, without the h pawn, it's known to be drawn, but like a very hard position to draw. With the extra h pawn, it seems like it should be a better version of the situation. All right, so let's talk. Queen e4 followed by h4 would be a simple-ish way to play it, but Mr. Pruess will look for more. Yeah, so if we check on f6 or g6, attack or double check with the double check to attack the king and queen on f6 g6, we can force a trade. I don't see that immediately. Kostya's hope is to play queen f3 check at some point. Makes sense. All right, queen f7 is a sneaky move. Yeah, we definitely don't want to allow queen f3 with some kind of dastardly check. So if we imagine queen e4 check, and then it's a big question where the king goes, actually. It's one of the problems for white. Because we're going to be setting, I think, so imagine queen e4, let's say the king goes here, just for kicks. h4, then you check, so we have it on b5, right? You check on f1, excuse me. I go here, then you come back, and then I have queen e2 double checking. I keep saying double checking, but you know what I mean, forcing the exchange. All right, queen e4 was, let me make sure that was actually played and not me. I think it was played. Uh-oh, there we go. Boom. Queen e4, king c5. This is hot. Okay, so if we imagine h4, then there's checks here and here. I think we get out. I don't think he doesn't get to check us forever, or is it not true? So let's imagine h4, queen f2. I keep saying queen f2, queen f1. If king d2, we need to account for queen f2, and it is tagging this pawn, so it's kind of annoying. Okay, so now Mr. Pruess has his first, let's call it technical test here. But wait a second. Does this win Mr. Automatic? No, because on queen d4, you'd have to play king b5. There's king c6 would lose. Ooh, buddy. Here we go. Here we go. e6. Genius? Maybe. White has a big question. Do you want to play queen f1 or do you want to play queen h5? Oh, man. So queen f1. Now we can do queen e2 though, and e6 guards f5. That might have been kind of clever. So queen f1, unless we have a great idea on queen e2, was a mistake. Imagine queen e2, queen b1, king e3, queen h7, king f2, and black is winning. It's so important for the black king to start snuggling up to that g2 pawn. Queen, and we just had a great note from IC in the chat that if instead of queen f1, queen h5, black had queen f5. And that does, at least everybody's suspicion there would have to be, hey, that's got to be winning. We'll maybe double check that, though. There might have to be some double checking on that one. Whew, yeah, there might be some double checking. So my sense is now King E3 is winning. Queen C2. Well, unless Mr. Pruess has grossly miscalculated this thing, which maybe he has, this is a win for black. Did he blow it? Did he blow it? We're about to find. Stay tuned. We're about to find out. Again, so amazing with these 30. One of the things as an old guy, let me just say, about watching the 30-second stuff is it's very instructive for me psychologically that when you got that 30 seconds, you're not going to lose on time. And there'll come some sequence of moves at some point where you'll get just a bunch of time back. Now, I think what's happened here? It really looks like Mr. Pruess is thinking up the dojo here. What has he done? King E3, King F5. King E4, King F6, King F4. Are you getting there, Pruess? You getting there, boss? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think you are. Because every time you go to G3, I start talking to your H pawn. Yeah, I don't know, buddy. Unless do you have Miracle Win? Do you have the Miracle Win, buddy? I don't know. King E4, King F6, King F4, King G7, King G3, King H6. I don't see it. Yo no see yo. Jess Gaines is talking about King E4, King F6, King F4, and as I said, King G7. The problem there for black is if King G3, King H6, H4, King H5, or King G5, nothing. Yeah, nothing. King F4, King F6, King F4, King G7, H4, King H6. Maybe there is some weird trick. I'm beginning to see. Okay, let's think about it. King F6, King F4, King G7, H4. Maybe King H6 and King G4. Ah! Maybe, because the pawn's covering the square. That might be really intense, my friends. That might be very intense. Oh. I want to almost guarantee Pruess did not see that when he did the Queen C2 thing, man. Holy catoles. All right, let's look at it. King F6. So our idea is King G7, H4. King H7, King G3, King G6, King G2, gone. So King G7, H4. H4, there it is. And so what we're seeing is King H6, King G4 with the Zugzwang moment of the year. Well, now he's going to find it. Oh, man. Nasty. Oh, baby. Boom. Oh, yeah. Wow, man. Wow. That was the real deal, dude.
Yeah, that was tough.
Dang.
Nicely played, though.
Dang. Man, oh man. All right. First question I want to ask you guys. Did your sense of the position of the evaluation change?
No.
Yeah, I felt like it's very tricky for white. Like at the start, I was thinking, okay, black has a lot of ways to go wrong, but now I feel like white has just as many ways to go wrong.
What about the fact that black's up 2 pawns? Didn't that change something?
Never counted them.
It was always in the position.
No, I just think white shouldn't play King D5.
You think it's still a draw there? Or
What do you mean a draw? I mean, you might be winning. I'm not sure.
or winning? No, I didn't know it.
You're definitely not in trouble if you just play like let's see, I just played b6 probably. So you could play either b3 or g3. G3 is going to be best because it's going to take the most reserve tempi.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I missed this king e4 idea, but thought
Well, let me invite you guys to the board.
I wasn't seeing it working out for me, but
Yeah, let me invite you guys to the board and we'll talk about it. And I will say that in this game, Black won an amazing game. My sense of it is that Black is winning. We'll see.
Black's winning from the start?
Yeah. He's got 2 pawns, man. He's got 2 extra pawns.
Those aren't pawns.
But just because they're doubled, you think they aren't people?
I think they're not people.
So as I was telling, the effect of the pawns, and we actually see this in your amazing thing, is that they are tempos. So they might be ugly, but they are tempo moves.
yeah, it takes forever.
Like we saw with the h7 pawn, it actually ended up covering a very important square at the end, right? So, yeah. All right. So let's talk about it. I think king f4 I thought was a mistake, though, like as I said, maybe it doesn't matter. So let me just put it conceptually. Obviously, the reason to White's trump is he's got this outside pass pawn, and he's going to run the thing. We have to stomp the thing as Black. And conceptually, if we can give up our e5 pawn, but just get over there, then we should be winning. Can't move the e7 pawn because we need the king to go all the way in while we do our business.
Wait. So you're saying if you imagine the Black king on like c6,
Yeah?
and the e6 pawn is gone as like the toll,
Yeah?
then Black is winning?
Well, yeah, dude. Then I'm up 1 pawn.
Yeah, but your 1 pawn is that double H pawn, and White moves to attack your E pawn with the second E pawn with their
Okay.
king.
But say this is a complicated one, man. This is a complicated one.
Jeez.
I feel like it would. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm.
So the reason that king f4, I think, is a mistake. I think king e4 and c4 are interchangeable. Is that on king f4, Black must get over to, as we saw that Kostya did as well. He has to get, or David has to get over by playing e5 and king e6. So king f4 seems like loss of tempo.
Yeah, I thought it might be clever to lose a tempo. Like when I was analyzing it during the 5 minutes you gave us, I had planned king e4, king f6, c4.
Okay, yeah, and I think those are the 2 natural moves to start with. And honestly,
Right.
I think in a practical game, you're not going to really analyze it to the end. But I think you could tell yourself king e4, c4. and then go from there. You know?
And it's kind of interchangeable, which you do. But then when Kostya played king f4, I was like, oh, shoot, it changes all the tempi by 1. This might be like genius to lose a tempo on purpose. But the one line where it doesn't work to lose a tempo is the line where you play king d5 and Black goes king f5. Because that's the one that's like a race between the c pawn and the e pawn. Yeah. Because I was planning like king e4, king f6, c4, and then if e5 there, if b6, b4, e5 there, White can play king d5 in that position. And on king f5, c5, and you queen with check.
Yeah.
So that was a difference, and then I allowed king d5 because I thought because I could here. The other line, the point of king d5 is to make Black play e6 check.
Oh, okay, but wait, let's get
and then
to
you have to go back to e4, but then the e pawns have both moved.
Let's get to the position so people can see what we're talking about, right? So why don't, David, you repeat what you said? I think you're talking about this position here with king e4, right?
Right. So here after b6, he can't play king d5, but if he had played king e4 on the first move, and then king f6, c4, b6, b4, e5, here I was planning to play king d5 as White in this position. because here on king f5, c5, I think white wins because of queening with check. I'd planned king d5, e6, and then king back to e4 as white.
Now, Dave, let me just say, I think this is something I've noticed in doing analysis of my own games is my moves will often be predicated on what I believe to be happening in the position. So I just want to put this out there, David, that since you thought that black was the one in trouble, you played b6 because you're like, maybe I can hold the position with b6. Right?
I played b6 because I was concerned that in a position where white puts the pawn on c5 and then the other pawn on b4, that my king on e6 would already be zugzwanged because it doesn't have the d6 square. I anticipated that I needed d6 and e6 for my king.
Yeah, maybe we could take a look at some of these lines. Like, let's say here white just goes like b4.
Go ahead, put it on b4.
King e6. G3.
Wait, 1 second. If you play b4 first, can I play h4 for black there? Yeah, I can.
Let's say.
Oh, but then you try king d5 there.
Yeah, I mean, now it's a little bit ahead.
Now you try king d5. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so you can play b4, king e6, g3, king d6, king f5. You don't have to do this. This is just what
this was always the idea, and king d6 to go king f5. And then maybe just back king e4 or something.
Right. And then I was going to go e6 here.
I don't know if you want to go e6 because then c5 might draw.
But yeah, I was trying to draw. So.
I get it. Okay, so that's what I mean. But the b6 is motivated by you having a sense in your mind of like, this is, I'm aiming for a draw instead of being like, oh.
Yeah, like if he offered me a draw on the first move, I would take it.
Okay, good. Good. Yeah. No, and I think that happens at all stages of the game. Like we come up with an idea and then they're like, well, we're going to find a move which fits our evaluation. Right.
Right.
And b6 is, let's just say, it's obviously controversial because you are enabling whites, you're playing on your weak side, enabling white's pass pawn and king d5, c6. So maybe white can hold it then after b6.
Yeah.
Right. We'll see.
But what else am I supposed to play?
Well, I think here both h4 and king e6 are going to win. h4 seems clearest, I guess.
I definitely wanted to play h4. But yeah, I thought b4, c5, and my king misses a square. Or actually c5 here, right, would have been my concern.
And let me just say with h4, h4 is just in a lot of ways you could think of it as a positional move because at some point I might need, first of all, the f3 square for my king when I start pushing my e-pawn. And I'm going to now get two tempi moves that I can blow in any way that I want, right? So let's say king e6.
I mean, you're taking away one from white and adding one to yourself. So h4, it's like, no, you're winning two for yourself, right?
Yeah,
h4 and h6, h5. You got 3 instead of 1 moves, and white's got 0 instead of 1.
This is now simple. This is now simple.
Simple in what sense?
Because you're going to run out of moves, buddy.
Well, we've got all the b pawn, though. Should I play for white?
Okay. So let's say king d7. Ruh-roh.
Why?
Right, king d5 here.
He'll play e4.
I wasn't convinced I need to play e4. I can wait it too. I can still wait it out. But e4 looks plausible. Yeah.
And if we take, you go here,
Yeah.
b4, and here, huh?
Yeah. I'm winning this.
Jeez.
Yeah. This I was definitely afraid of during the game, but my idea would be not to split the pawns up. So maybe b4 for white.
Okay.
And this I was having a hard time figuring out, but looks like we don't really have. No chance, huh?
Wow, that's so nifty.
Why don't I show you guys the game with king e4? Because king e4 has got to be correct, right? Because
Yeah, it has to be better.
You can see now that black wants this to get over. He has to get over, right? So c4, excuse me, king f6, c4. What else are you going to do, right? E5, c5. And now in the game, black played king e6, but h4 is, in fact, I think, once you see the idea, it's just like h4 is just a menace, right?
Yeah. I mean, I really, really wanted to play h4. I just thought I was like losing.
Right, king f5, b4, e4. Thank you very much. King d4, boom.
Yeah.
Right? We're gone.
Yep.
And if I can get the f3 square via h3, right? So that's not a big thing.
Yeah.
And then, of course, boom, boom. You can go for this check thing, but e2.
There's even e5.
And then I can do it whenever I want. I can even do it
Yeah.
after you queen. And then that's going to be a
Right.
winning game. So that's the easy way. But I think the way the white played it, or excuse me, black played it a more human way, which made it more fun. King e6, g3 exclam,
Nice.
king d7, king d5, king c7 exclam.
Wow.
So what's the point? If b4, now we do your
B4.
move, David. Yeah. So the problem is for white is every time you play b4, it's a victim, right? The pawn is a victim.
But hang on, why is it better to wait a move, Jesse, as opposed to playing e4?
I want him to either give me the c6 or to play b4 or b3. I want contact with that pawn.
But like in theory, if you play e4, king c6, is white not going to play b4 to defend it?
Well, king d4 he has in that position. And maybe that's winning for me, but this is I don't want to think about that one. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because now you're going to have to give it to me. King b5, thank you very much. King b4, and life is terrible. Watch this one. c6. This is one of my favorite moves of this game. King c6, baby. Oh, yeah. Oh,
Nasty.
yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Taste
Nice
me,
one.
baby. b4, it's still not over yet. King d5, king c3. Here we go. King e6, king d4. King e7, king f5. You guys ready for it? Oh no! Sorry.
Huh?
Toast. Toast. Yeah.
Huh.
So
Yeah,
it's
these things are
interesting,
so
you know,
complicated.
the pawn endgame. Now here we'll ask just David, and this is more of an intuitive question. I do think you could figure it out. So David's thing about, you know, David said at the beginning of this, and he said at other places, something I object to, but I appreciate the principle, which is that you can work out any pawn ending. You know, and this one, definitely, I think once you get the idea, once you get black's idea, I think you can start working it out. But until you get the idea, you know, very difficult to just have a clear sense of, you know, WTF is going on. Certain pawn endgames, though, I just want to say from personal experience, having looked at them, I don't think they're rationally worked out, to be worked out. And something I said, David and Kostya, in the chat that I kind of like is the stupid game Connect 4. It has a lot to do with pawn endings because its Zugzwang is at around every corner. And so you're like counting it out, man. You're counting it out. And when you play Connect 4 against people who don't play chess, they're just, it's so sad for them because they don't understand. They don't understand how it's going to come bite them. And Connect 4 is evil because basically, every game's going to be run up into a trap, a Zugzwang trap.
Yeah, somehow it still feels simpler than the ones that drive me crazy is when it's like you have these like counterintuitive king moves, like going like backwards sometimes, like away from the pawns you're trying to take just to like save a tempo. I mean, I feel like it's so hard to find this stuff, especially if you don't have like a lot of time. That's why I just avoid pawn end games as much as I can. I just feel like it's just not practical in like a real game, but I don't know, maybe something I should work on.
Jesse's giving me a video idea. We take Jesse to a park and have him like hustle people at Connect 4 and video it.
I just want to say one thing for Endgame Sensei. Kostya's path to GM lies within the endgame technique, my friends.
If you're avoiding king and pawn endings.
Yeah, come on, buddy. What are you talking about?
Need to do the work.
But this is not technique. This is just like pure calculation, and it's very hard.
I would say, the thing about calculation, I think a lot of these things, it's the idea, right? Black has a conception of how to play it. One thing,
Yeah, that's fair.
I was going to say something very deep. In any case, the idea of me playing Connect 4 in a park just so short-circuited any thought that I was about to present. Okay. I know what I wanted to say. We had a question. What game was this? Good question. This is Pritchett Kagan, 1968. And it is not in my database, so I had to just create this. I got the game itself from this amazing book I'm working through. I will do a review at some point called Van Perlo's Endgame Tactics. At first, I kind of had an attitude about the book because the endgame books that I've done in the past that I really like are like, white to play and win, white to play and draw, and it's kind of like, a thing where you have to force yourself to try to solve a position. Whereas these are just amazing endgame fragments, if you will, that are organized according to theme. And I've been enjoying it. I've been doing a lot of life avoidance, just doing these endgame tactics. All right. Any final thoughts before we head it off to the Dojo Talks?
No, that was very interesting. I learned a lot from this one.
Okay, great. You guys, I'm gonna put it on the starting screen. DM Hokie, you can shut it off, and we're gonna regroup in about, let's say 5 minutes for Dojo Talks, where we will be talking about transferring federations. One player switching his home country to a different country for whatever reason they might be wanting to do that. All right, everybody, till we talk in a moment.